Coming to you from Nashville, Tennessee, this is the award-winning ParaReality Radio. My name's Sandman, and I'm going to be your host for the next hour tonight. Good evening, everybody. As always, thanks for tuning in. Well, it is Friday, January 18th, 2019, and of course, you know that means it's time for another episode of ParaReality Radio. Man, I am really excited to be bringing you this episode tonight because this is the beginning of somewhat of a new era for ParaReality Radio. And that's because tonight is the debut of my first resident co-host of the show. I've kind of had a co-host of sorts in the past, back when I was doing the annual Skeptics Night. There's a guy by the name of John Harrison who was I guess you'd say, for lack of a better word, he was the official show skeptic. And I would interview him every April for the annual Skeptics Night. Now, this guy, John Harrison, he came with some very impressive credentials. This guy's a biologist, he's a chemist, he's a medical professional, and as well as a confirmed skeptic. So, this is a pretty smart dude. And we actually had a really good time doing Skeptics Night, and we became pretty good friends. And whenever he was on the show, I always had good reviews, and that had me thinking that it'd be fun to have a regular co-host on the show, or a part-time co-host on the show, just some sort of co-host on the show. And unfortunately, the first person, obviously, that I had in mind was John Harrison, but unfortunately, John's moved out of state, and that makes it it's almost impossible for him to make regular appearances. So I did what any resourceful person would do, and I turned to the internet. I'm a member of a Facebook group for the Nashville area podcast community, and I made a post on Facebook about looking for a co-host for the show. And, the man that I'm about to introduce was one of the people who replied to my post, and that led to us exchanging some emails, and then the emails led to some phone conversations, and the phone conversations eventually led us to a face-to-face meeting. And, it only took that one meeting for me to realize that he was going to make a good addition to the show. And I'm happy to introduce everybody to my new co-host, Eric Patterson. Eric, welcome to ParaReality Radio, man.
Sandman, what's going on? How you doing?
Man, I am doing wonderful. Like I said, I'm super excited to have you here on the show. I'm going to tell everybody just a little bit about you.
Go ahead.
Okay, everybody, Eric's been a podcaster for a year and a half now. He's always been fascinated by the world of the paranormal and all these weird TV shows like Fringe, which is one of the shows that I love, Ancient Aliens, one of the shows that I love as well. These shows, this sparked his imagination, according to him, and it inspired him to learn more, and so you began to do your own research, right?
Yeah, and you know what? As you were mentioning those shows, I was thinking, and actually I just saw on Amazon, the show Stargate. I don't know if you've ever seen Stargate.
Yes.
Stargate SG-1 or Stargate Atlantis. I used to watch those with my dad, so I'm going to add that to the list.
Yeah,
they're really cool. They got an older vibe, like late 90s type of sci-fi vibe, but I'd add that to the list, so yeah.
Yeah. You, I can't remember the name of the channel. There's this channel that comes, it's I can't even, I'm not even going to, but it's an over-the-air HD channel that you don't get on your cable package and stuff. And it's called Comet TV.
Okay.
And they air a lot of the old episodes of Stargate SG-1 and Andromeda with the guy that used to play Hercules. I can't remember his name. Yeah. So, I've watched a few reruns.
Yeah, for sure.
Hit the wrong button there. I watched a few reruns of those shows.
Alongside that, though, actually, I say Stargate, but that is like the first sci-fi show I really watched. I would watch them with my dad on, I believe it was the old Sci-Fi Network.
Yeah, probably.
And yeah, we watched those, and then I was a Fringe addict.
Oh my God, I love that show. Yes.
Walter Bishop, and just that whole like parallel timeline, parallel universe. There's something about that just really interesting, and love the actors in that, and then Ancient Aliens.
Yeah.
Yeah, always good stuff there. And yeah, huge sci-fi fan. All sci-fi movies. I mean, I'm down. So.
Me too. We're kindred souls.
As we keep talking, we for sure.
So, your podcast. You currently are you? Would you consider yourself the host or the co-host of your podcast?
Co-host.
You're the co-host, but you're the main guy though.
Yes.
You are the host, and then you have a co-host, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. So I do all the uploading the podcast and all the technical stuff.
You're the heavy, yeah.
And my friend Kyle, best friend, roommate Kyle, we've been doing it for a year and a half, and it's we do a lot. It's a mix of like current events and weird stuff, and we try to throw in some pretty funny stories every now and then. Just came across this story of a apparently a farmer in Utah found a whale in his fields.
Okay,
so,
I missed that.
Yeah, I mean, I found a little write-up on some local news channel website, and I mean, I have no idea how valid it is, but there's a whole phenomenon about like things falling from the sky and like fish, like
that I can get, but a whale.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, I don't know.
Like this was like a carcass. I mean, this wasn't like a skeletal remain. Okay,
so but
that's
anyway,
interesting.
We do a ton of funny stuff. I would say it's more entertaining, but we like to do some really cool stories. We've done stories about like old Victorian era mediumships. And, yes.
Cool.
Stuff, yeah.
So the name of your podcast is called The World We Live In, and you can hear it on Podbean.
Podbean. You can hear it on Podbean, iTunes, really anywhere, any of the big guys. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, Eric obviously is going to be joining me here as like a part-time co-host here on the show, and he's going to be making regular appearances on the second show of every month. So starting this year, I'm going back to doing every other week on the podcast instead of just monthly. We're going to do a bi-weekly show. First Friday of the month is me. Third Friday of the month will be me and my co-host Eric here, and we're gonna have a good time. I'm really looking forward to getting this kicked off.
Definitely.
Before we get too deep in the show,
yes,
let me tell everybody how they can get in touch with us here, because there are a few different ways. So if you're a regular listener of the show, this is where you can get up and go to the bathroom, because you've already heard this before. If you're new, if you're a The World We Live In fan, and this is your first time listening to ParaReality Radio, welcome. And here's how you can get in touch with me, Sandman, or Eric here on the show. First of all, you can just simply send me an email. The email address is sandman@parareality.com, or you can just go to the parareality.com website and just surf around there and hit the old contact page or button, and you can get in contact with me that way. You can also go to my Facebook page. I do have a Facebook page for ParaReality Radio. Just go in your Facebook search engine, type in ParaReality Radio, and ParaReality is all one word, is ParaReality, ParaReality Radio. And you can find the Facebook page by doing that. I'm also on Twitter, if you happen to be on Twitter, so you can follow me there at ParaReal Radio. That's at ParaReal Radio on Twitter. Or you can call the show. I do still have the studio line back from when I was doing the live show. I use it now mainly just for if people want to call and just leave a message. The number is area code 615-692-1170. That number to call, once again, is 615-692-1170. You can call there, leave a message. Just be aware, though, that I may play your comment back on the show. So leaving me a message gives me permission to do so. If you don't want it to be played back, you need to tell me in your message, don't play this back. And never know, I may also answer the phone too, because I'm in the studio every so often working on the show, and I may actually just pick it up and answer. So you never know. So those are all the different ways you can get in touch with me here on the show. So let's talk to Eric.
Let's do it.
Eric, so how did you, I know you just said you're a fan of sci-fi and all that sorts of stuff. How did you get interested into like the more paranormal and weird stuff, and what led you to doing a podcast?
I guess it's just been like a kind of progression. I was just thinking about some of this stuff the other day. I think the earliest memory I have of anything having to do with like paranormal, and just to preface this, I haven't had any paranormal experiences or anything like that, so it's nothing about that. But the earliest memory I have is I was another classic.
Oh, hell yeah.
And Loch Ness Monster.
Oh, wow.
So,
okay.
I guess you could say those are the big three. I feel like in pop culture, those are probably up there.
Yeah.
But anyway, she mentioned those to me, and I just continued to have a fascination, and kept reading stuff, and watching TV shows definitely were the biggest outlet for me to understand more stuff. Along with paranormal things, it's like ancient history or hidden history type of stuff, information that might have been lost throughout the ages, ancient civilizations. It's just kept building on itself. It's kind of like anything. You start off with like the big topics, and then as you explore more, you get down to the finer details. And I'm really interested in like some of the guys who have done like deep research into some of this stuff. The name's escaping me, but the man who did the research about like the Mothman in Point Pleasant.
Oh yeah.
I'm sorry, the name's escaping me.
Me
Very
too.
Popular.
Yeah.
Very popular writer. I haven't read any of his stuff, but I have been introduced to his works, and all of that stuff is really interesting to me.
Yeah.
How people kind of explore it from a humanity standpoint and try to understand, are these real occurrences? Like, they interview people, are these real happenings, and where is like the boundary between the paranormal and maybe just like a legend or just a story that gets passed around.
Yeah.
So.
The TV show that got me interested into it was the original In Search Of with Leonard Nimoy.
Yes, of course.
When I was a kid, I was fascinated with that show. And that's kind of, I guess, if you could say, what influenced me the most as a kid, it would be that show. But I did have, when I was probably around 10 or so, I did have the only way that I can describe it is an unexplained experience, a paranormal type experience. And people who've listened to this show before, they've heard me say this a million times, so this is old news. But I was raised as an only child, but I was spoiled. I admit it, because I had no brothers and sisters to split up the booty with. But I wanted a set of bunk beds.
Yeah.
And so I got a set of bunk beds for Christmas or birthday or something like that, and had these bunk beds, and I would swap out from sleep. Sometimes I sleep on the top bunk, sometimes I sleep on the bottom. And I remember one night I was sleeping on the top bunk, and I woke up. Don't know what time it was, but sometime during the middle of the night, and that's not unusual for me. I've always had problems sleeping my whole entire life ever since I was a kid. And the way that our house was, my parents' bedroom was directly across the hall from mine. And my mother hates the dark. Hates it. So there was always a nightlight on in the hallway. Yeah. And you could see, when I woke up, I could see the hall. I could, there was plenty of light. And I was laying there, probably trying to go back to sleep or something. And I heard the sound of, I can only describe it as bare feet walking on carpet.
Okay.
And now this was, I'm going to tell everybody how old I am here. This was in the 70s here, okay? So this was the era of shag carpeting and stuff. So, there was a distinct sound that feet made when it walked on carpet. And it came from my parents' room, and I just thought it was my mother coming out of their room, and it would not be unusual for her to get up during the night, like go to the bathroom, or if she ever woke up, she would always like come and check on me, make sure I was okay, on the only child syndrome type deal, and I just thought it was my mom. And I heard these footsteps walked directly out of my parents' room, walked across the hall, and stopped in the threshold of my door. Now, remember, there was a nightlight on. I had plenty of light to see.
Yeah.
There was nobody there. And when the footsteps stopped at my threshold of my room, this was what I heard. I heard something went, and then did a little smacking like that, and then turned and walked down the hall. Okay. Scared the shit out of me.
Yeah, sure.
And it wasn't my mom, wasn't my dad, wasn't the family dog, because I was up high, so I had view of the floor and the whole doorway and everything. There was nothing there. Yeah. There was absolutely nothing there. And so, like I said, it scared the shit out of me. So I kind of like stayed up the rest of the night with the covers pulled up, thinking what the hell's going to happen here. What was that, And I never really told my parents about it or anything like that. And I don't know. I've never researched the history of the land that my childhood home was on. But I do know that it was farmland at one point. Okay. And we're talking about deep south here. So it could be some, Native American something or other, who knows. Sure. But that's the one and only time that anything like that ever happened to me in that house. Now, if anything's happened to my mother or whatever, she hasn't said anything, but I wasn't asleep. I didn't dream it, and I don't know what it was. So, that and that one incident stuck out with me so much, and I think that's kind of why I started watching the Leonard Nimoy In Search Of show. To try to find some sort of answer for that, and ever since then, I've just been, after watching that show, it just got me more and more deep into it. So here we are, so many years later, and I've been doing this internet radio show / podcast for years now, and I'm still looking for answers.
You're still searching.
Still searching. Yeah.
Yeah. No. That's one of the things that's awesome is that a lot of this stuff is, for lack of a better word, mysterious. And firsthand accounts, I believe, and I think a lot would agree, that those are like the best sources of knowledge. Yeah. Because we each have our own experience of things, and the way one person interprets something is not going to be the same way another person interprets something. True. And you get like a ton of those together, and you can start to piece together, okay, where did this come from? Where are the truths? Where are the exaggerations? And it just continues to grow.
So you mentioned stuff like the Loch Ness Monster and Bigfoot. Mm-hmm. Are you a believer in Nessie and Sasquatch?
I am not a believer in Nessie.
Neither am I.
I think it's one of those things that caught on and people just kept dragging it through and developed. Yeah. It was
river monsters.
River monsters, yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And they're like half blind. They're just a wild animal. But anyway,
I'm gonna have to look this up while you're talking, because now you got me.
Check the Greenland shark out if you're listening. And I don't know a specific year, but they were very recently just found. Like, I'm talking maybe 50s or 60s. Like the first one publicly was caught. Because they live so deep, they live in like pitch black darkness down at the deep fjords. But anyway, so I'm not a believer in Nessie. Again, the stories are always entertaining.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, Bigfoot, I do think there's something out there. I don't know whether it's a physical being or some sort of spiritual, kind of thinly veiled phenomenon. I have been to.
Holy crap! I'm sorry.
Yeah,
just
no,
saying.
you're good. Yeah,
These Greenland sharks are wow.
They're pretty awesome.
They are. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's freaky.
I've been to the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation out in South Dakota, and it's a really long story, but one of my teachers in high school had done a lot of work out there, and she got connected with a man who was fairly respected in the tribe, and he was telling us about some of the ideas about Sasquatch and it being like a spiritual entity that comes back to check on the world, and they didn't view it as a negative presence. It was just kind of, from what I remember, it was kind of like you kind of just leave them alone. Like, what they do is their own business.
Yeah,
and
you leave them alone, they'll leave you alone.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's kind of the deal. So, and then the other one was Dracula that I mentioned. Which is always fun. Vampires, I feel like, have taken on a pop culture role, especially in the past few years.
Thanks to Anne Rice. Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually just watching there's a show called The Originals, which is about vampires. It's on Netflix. It's pretty good. I watched the first episode. I was like, I might.
Is it a scripted show, or is it it's a scripted?
It's a scripted show. It's about an old family that deals in like black magic, and long story short, they end up turning into vampires, and and then they found the city of New Orleans, and so.
Have you ever seen the movie What We Do in the Shadows?
No, I haven't.
Oh my God, you need to watch this movie. I'm sure it's on Netflix. It's a comedy, but it is a quote-unquote documentary about a clan of vampires in the modern era. Freaking hilarious.
Really?
It is so hilarious, but it's really, really good.
Yeah.
They have got to do a sequel to this show. That's how good it is.
I've never heard of it.
Yeah, it's called What We Do in the Shadows. You need to look it up.
Gotcha.
So I am akin to you. I don't believe that there is a Loch Ness monster. Maybe once there used to be.
Yeah.
But it either has to be the longest living creature in the history of the universe, or there has to be a breeding population of these things. And if there's a breeding population, then we would see more of them, and we wouldn't see just one at a time. We'd see multiple of these creatures. So I'm with you. I don't think that Nessie is. If Nessie was real, Nessie's not with us anymore.
Yeah.
And I do think that there is something to Bigfoot. There's just been way too many people with way too many stories that seen way too many things all over the United States. So there's something. There's a guy that I've interviewed on this show several times. His name's Tony Pratt. He is I guess you could say he's some sort of Bigfoot expert.
Yeah.
He's done a lot of research into Sasquatch, had a few encounters. His theories are not mainstream.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of any theories about Bigfoot being like a pet that was left here by an alien race or something like that? Like, he escaped or something, he doesn't necessarily believe in that, but he does think that there's a connection between Bigfoot and UFOs. And that the Sasquatch is more of a spiritual type creature, more ethereal, I guess.
That's kind of where I'm leaning.
Yeah.
Because some of the stories I've heard there's a few I've heard where people have shot it and it there's no effect, and it just seems more, and the kind of disappearing and random encounters.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where I'm leaning, but who knows?
Well, I have talked to some. Speaking of vampires, kind of changing the subject. You'd mentioned Dracula and stuff. I have talked to some people who are self-professed vampires. The most, and doing this podcast for as long as I have come across some very strange and unusual people, as you can imagine. Yeah. And the guy that I'm thinking of, he wrote a book. I got a copy of it somewhere. I can't remember the name of it. It's basically about how to be a vampire or something like that. The guy's name is I don't know what his real name is. The name that he goes by is Frater Nyolapertep or something like that.
Strange.
Yeah, some weird thing. Yeah. And I read this book, and it's not for everybody. But it's decent. But I don't know if there are your typical blood drinking, long fanged vampires out running around all over the place. But I do believe that there are people who are psychic vampires.
Oh, okay.
And this guy was a self-professed or self-proclaimed psychic vampire. And I do believe that there's something to it. I've done a handful of experiments in it, and mixed results, with my amateur experimentation. But I do believe that there are some psychic vampires out there I think those are our modern day vampires. I don't necessarily know that there's, like I said, people running around sucking blood out of other people.
Yeah, I hope that's not the case. I feel like there are a lot of blood-borne diseases that one could obtain from sucking blood, but the vampire might be immune to that.
I was going to say, if you're a vampire, you're immortal, and you're dead. So what does it matter? Excuse me, you're undead.
Exactly. Another one that just popped in my mind is some of the research that I really enjoy is some of the research from Linda Godfrey. She does a lot of Wolfman, Dogman, wolf-type creatures.
Beast of Bray Road. Yes. I'm very familiar with her work,
Definitely one of the most famous. I have read one of her books. I can't remember which one. I think it was a couple years. It was published a couple years ago, but it is Wolfman Encounters, and a lot in Wisconsin.
That's where she's from.
Seems to be like a hotbed. New York, Vermont, kind of up there, another hotbed area, and then there were also some I believe there were some desert type of wolfmen.
I think the book you're talking about was it Dogmen and Other Strange Encounters or something like that? I've read that book. Yeah. I've read a few of Linda's books. I'd love to get her on the podcast. Maybe I can reach out to her and we can interview her.
That would be super cool. Yeah.
I would love to take a field trip to Bray Road, just so I can say I've been there. There's this new show. I want to say it's on the History Channel. It's either History or Travel, one of the two. It's called Legend Hunter.
Okay.
This guy, I can't remember his name, but he's some sort of biologist or something like that, and he takes these urban legends and he investigates them. One of the things that he did was the Lizzie Borden murder, but his latest episode was on Bray Road, the Beast of Bray Road, and he thinks his final conclusion was that the Beast of Bray Road is nothing more than a black bear with a mange.
So yes, that
makes a good case for it.
An opinion that I've heard from mainstream science is the mange theory, and I've looked at pictures of bears with mange, and don't get me wrong, it's weird.
Yeah,
they look very creepy, and it looks like a disgusting disease.
Yeah. Their head is very wolf-like though, without all that hair.
Yes, very. But then you hear about stories of them in packs, people experiencing them in packs, and you're like, maybe that can't be the full theory, but I have no doubt that people have witnessed bears with mange.
Yeah.
And like, oh my gosh, it's a wolf.
Well, the thing that gets me about that it could be a dog man, as Linda calls it, is the way that the people that she interviews describes the creature running as it runs on its hind legs with the arms stretched out in front of it, like what you would picture like a dog. If a dog could run on its hind legs, what you would picture a dog like running with its front legs kind of straight out like that. And a bear, number one, doesn't really run on its hind legs. It walks. But when they do, they don't have their arms stuck straight out like that. They're kind of, bent crooked. Yeah. So that's the thing that struck me, is because there's more than one person that has described it as running on its hind legs with its arms stuck out in front of it. Like that. It's like a Frankenstein, like, you would picture Frankenstein from Boris Karloff. So that is the thing that sticks out to me, is that there's, yes, could it be a bear with a mange? That could be responsible for some of the sightings, but that doesn't explain the people who say they've seen it running like that. That's what freaks me out.
100%. Yep. Totally in agreement there. I was just thinking, we hop back between the popular topics.
Yeah.
True Blood on HBO. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Yes.
True Blood, another one I watched.
Started out good, ended like shit.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, they killed off some characters that I disagreed with, but is what it is. But yeah, totally another vampire popularized there. So yeah. You've got to look at historically what vampires were historically and what vampires are now, and now they've been romanticized and turned into these creatures that glitter gold in the sunlight and drink the blood of deer or whatever. And historically, vampires were vile, nasty, disgusting creatures. Yeah, like demonized and hunted by so now it's like anything else. Could they have morphed over the years? Could they have quote unquote evolved? Absolutely, if they're real. Yeah. But I think the real answer to are there vampires would be they're more psychic vampires than there are the sanguine. This is the physical blood sucking. Back to I was just thinking about the Jeremy Wade thing and the Loch Ness, and they're like, it's crazy how many stories there are like all over the world of these like remote lakes where people have seen these like giant fish. And that's just like this. This is more of like a physical mystery, but it just makes me think every time about how many things are out there in the oceans, lakes
that we don't
even know about.
Yeah,
we've never seen, and we have no idea.
Greenland shark.
Exactly, Greenland shark. Yeah, that we are yet to discover.
Well, they just confirmed the existence of the giant squid a few years ago.
Ah, yes.
Yep. So.
We know more about space than we do our own ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the giant squid could explain the legend of the Kraken.
Oh, for sure. For sure it could. Yeah.
I would like to think that it's more like Clash of the Titans, but it's probably not.
I am totally in your boat. I totally do too. Or the scene from Pirates of the Caribbean.
I hated those movies, so
You did? Oh,
I'm not a Johnny Depp fan. I'm sorry.
No, there's a topic we disagree.
Oh yeah. Okay. So we won't talk about Johnny Depp.
Yeah, we're good.
So what about stuff more spiritual in nature, like ghosts and poltergeists and demons and stuff like that? What are your thoughts on stuff like that?
Yeah. Again, I haven't had any experiences within this, so this is purely conjecture. But yeah, totally, I do believe there's a phenomenon that happens when there's a ton of negative energy and things get caught in this side of existence. And I think I'm getting the name of this theory right, but it's like the stone tape theory, where something gets caught.
Yeah.
Something, as I've just explained, something gets caught in our reality and it like keeps repeating itself. And that's kind of where ghosts come from, where you just see something there and it's just kind of bland and it's kind of like
doesn't interact.
It's fading in and out. Now, the weirder ones are the stories where people have, like, marks on their bodies or something happens. And that, I don't really know what I believe. But I do believe there can be evil entities that I think the person involved has to kind of search those out.
Yeah.
I don't think they just are able to interact with us. I believe you either have to run into it or you have to, like, I don't know what the hell you'd be doing, but nothing that I would be doing.
Yeah.
But, doing some sort of Ouija board stuff where you, and that's a whole other topic if you believe in that. Or like some seance and you bring something in that isn't supposed to be here.
Well, it's interesting to hear you say about the stone tape theory and, things that you can't interact with because it's more like a recording, right?
It is, yeah.
That is what a ghost is, my friend. A ghost is nothing more than, for lack of a better definition, a spiritual recording.
Yeah.
It does the same thing over and over again. You cannot interact with it. It doesn't see you because it's just a recording. A spirit, on the other hand.
Thank you for
that.
clarifying.
Yeah, that is the one that interacts with you and scratches you, or when you do the EVP session, it answers you on the EVP and all that. So they're different.
Agreed. Yeah. It's where they're able to interact with this side.
And then the poltergeist is something totally separate from the ghost and the spirit.
Yes. And I am not. I've seen a couple of the old poltergeist movies, but as far as the topic's concerned, I don't know a ton about poltergeist. So yeah, I can't really speak on that.
That's okay. That's one of the good things about doing stuff that we do is you're like, I don't know much about this. Let me learn about it, and then before you know it, you're like, I need to do a show on this.
I need to do more on that.
Yeah.
I have. This is me personally, and I have been, as I mentioned previously, I've been to the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, and I've done a sweat lodge.
Oh yes,
which is one of their cleansing ceremonies, and it was fairly official because there are sweat lodges you can do where it's not. Yeah,
and you
native.
die and stuff. Yeah,
it's not native, but again, my teacher that I had in high school, she had connections on the reservation, and we had a man who was fairly renowned and fairly respected, actually very respected within the tribe.
That's great.
Do our sweat lodge, and it was really awesome.
Did you think you were going to die?
There was a point where I almost left, but I pushed through, and when I exited the, it's like a rawhide tent.
Yeah.
When I exited the tent, it was one of the most euphoric feelings I've ever felt. There was something about the sweating, and I know people get this when they work out. I get it when I work out. After I work out, I feel amazing. There is something about like
endorphins
and sweating out the bad stuff that you take in throughout the day. And this was on a very more spiritual level. They were chanting, and the rocks that had been heated up for the sweat lodge were from they were from one of the mountains in Washington. I can't remember the name. I think it was it might have been Mount St. Helens, but they were and they had been heating them all day. They were like bright red. It was wild, and they were carrying them in on these. I believe they were carrying them in on like a deer antler. It was very awesome. And that I did to this day. Going to the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation is probably a highlight of my life so far.
Wow!
Because it just expanded my my worldview and expanded my idea of native culture. And
it's awesome.
Yeah, so. Love to talk about that. Anytime I can bring that up, I'll bring it up just because it was so profound for me. And we actually also got to see a Sundance, part of a Sundance, which we didn't think was going to happen and has only happened one other time on this trip that happens every year. Just depending on who's doing it, if they feel like So again, the connection that my teacher had allowed us to do this, and we had to be spoken to before we entered, because outside of the tribe, not many people are able to see this.
Oh wow! So this was a real big deal.
Oh yeah, it was, and it was truly. I don't even know I have words to describe it. It was just really incredible to watch. These dancers that had given themselves to this for, I mean, they don't eat or drink anything, but I think it was like sage tea for like 3 or 4 days.
Wow.
I mean, it is like a spiritual, physical like task. And anyway, it was really awesome. And,
too bad you couldn't film it. I bet they wouldn't let you film it, would
no,
they?
We had to like shut off our phones and all that. Yeah. But there was a giant bald eagle there.
Wow.
And they had a whole setup. I don't know the details of the setup, but the setup there is purpose to where everything's set up in the ceremony. And
now, what is the purpose of the Sundance?
the purpose of the Sundance, from what I understood and from what I witnessed, it was very much like a connected to the world. And
well, yeah, you're suffering if you haven't eaten or drank anything but sage tea for 3 days.
Yeah, and they're dancing. I mean, they're moving around a tree. I can't remember which type of tree it was, but yeah.
Wow,
yeah.
I would love to be able to see something like that.
It was very cool, and like I said, we wouldn't have been able to experience it, and I don't think many people will be able to experience it, just because this teacher I had been going back there for like years, and this was years in the making. She had developed the relationships and done work with people on the reservation, and she actually got adopted into the tribe.
Oh, so she wasn't native then?
No, she is.
Okay.
She's actually born in Tennessee. She's
okay.
totally white, and she actually got adopted into the tribe on our trip before the sweat lodge that we did.
Wow.
By one of the elders.
See, I'm trying to get my wife's tribe to adopt me. I don't know if that's going to work, because my wife's Native American.
Again, each tribe is different, and I have no relation to anything native.
Yeah.
So I can't speak, but.
So that sounds like that whole trip was something that was very life altering for you. Yeah.
Definitely was. And that was the second time I went. The first time I went, we spent this. So the second time I went was after my freshman year of college, so 4 years ago. And the first time I went, we spent time at the Jesuit school on the reservation, Red Cloud Indian School, and we got to do all types of activities with the kids, and we got to basically shadow kids our age. And the reservation is extremely spread out, and so these kids are these kids dedicate themselves to getting an education, and a lot of kids have gone on to do pretty big things. They go to college and get education, and each their own. But some come back to the reservation and help develop the reservation and do all that.
Yeah.
But it was awesome spending time with the kids, and just seeing the kid I was with, totally different background than me. We were nowhere close to where we grew up, as far as relation wise, and it was just cool to gel with another kid hundreds of miles away that has a completely different background as you, and just develop a relationship. So it was fun. And then the second time, as I think you probably can interpret, was much more spiritual.
Yeah. Yep. I would love to be able to experience something like that. As that my wife is Native American, and her tribe is totally different than any other what you would think would be a typical Native American tribe. She is Lumbee.
Okay.
And they are from North Carolina. And the Lumbee Indians are the largest federally unrecognized tribe in the United States.
Well, I was about to say, I've never heard.
Yeah, not many people outside of North Carolina have. So you need to do some research on if you like Native American stuff. Do some research on the Lumbee tribe, and their history is absolutely fascinating. And there's a guy that wrote a book called "The Only Land I Know." I think is what the name of it is. It's by Philip K. Dial, which is like the definitive book on Lumbees, and it was written in the 70s. But it goes into a lot of the history of the Lumbees and everything. But the paranormal history, well, that's not a good term. The mysterious, the unexplained history of the Lumbees is, where did they actually come from? Because they don't necessarily look like you would think Native Americans look. They don't talk like Native Americans would talk, and they don't have any of the same history that Native Americans have. So the legend is that the Lumbee Indians are a hybrid of what was left of the lost colony of Roanoke and the indigenous tribes in North America. That the lost colony got absorbed by them, and therefore they adopted a lot of the white man ways. They're dark complected and have dark skin, but some of them have lighter colored hair, blondish or almost blonde hair. They have a very distinct dialect that I cannot describe to you. The only way is you just have to hear it. And their names are not what you would think would be typical Native American names. And some of their last names are exactly the same as the people that were on the manifest on the boat that came over to Jamestown, to the lost colony. To Roanoke. So it's very, very interesting. And that's how when I started dating my wife, she was Lumbee, and I was like, "What? I've never heard of Lumbee. What the hell is this?" So I did some research, and she gave me the book to read, and that kind of prompted me to do all this research and everything. So it was very interesting, right up your alley. I mean, totally. It's not paranormal, so to speak, but it is a mystery, and they cannot gain federal recognition. And now in the state of North Carolina, they're a recognized tribe, but they cannot gain federal recognition. And it's been a fight that they've been fighting for decades to try to get this done. So, but I'm going to try to work on getting them to adopt me. I don't know if how that'll go. They'll probably make me pay money. No, I'm just kidding. I don't think it's going to go over too well, but I don't know. I've got connections in the tribe, but we'll see. My wife's she won't even take her. You have to take a test to prove you're Native American, right? She won't even take her test, so she can't even get her card that says I'm an Indian. She doesn't even have her wallet card, so I don't think I can get mine either.
That's a hassle.
I can only imagine. So tell me about how you started. We got about 10 minutes left. So tell me about what got you started doing your podcast, The World We Live In.
I just simply started the idea of wanting to create my own content, and found it fairly easy to do so. And my best friend Kyle, we are very comfortable talking around each other, so it flows. And he loves the type of stuff we do. Just to give more information, like on other stuff, we've done like AI. We've done a lot of tech stories, like some of the new like space tech, and some of the new space discoveries that they're finding are just ridiculously amazing. China landed a lunar probe on the dark side of the moon, which is pretty awesome. Ton of stuff like that. And creating content is... Keep knocking on my cord. Creating content it's fun. It's fun to do your own stuff.
It is. And thanks to today's technology, like you said, it's not that difficult anymore. You don't have to have any real knowledge of what the hell it is that you're doing to do it.
This is true.
I mean, that's how I got started. I had no freaking clue what I was doing at all. And you can listen back to some of my first, episodes, and you're like, oh God, it stinks. It just, you do enough and you either get good at it or you don't, But yeah, that's one of the things that I love about today's modern technology is that anybody has a way to do some sort of creative outlet or a way to get their message out there. Or if you're like me, you have all of this interest and you have same thing as you have this thing where it's like, well, I've got enough knowledge that I could talk about this. I think I can, do at least as good as some of these other people that are out there. So when I started doing my stuff, internet, there was no podcasting.
Yeah.
That did not exist. And internet radio was at its infancy, really. And I had no, like everybody else, zero budget. I still have zero budget. Everything that I put into this is just, you just sink money into it. The more, your show can get, and you're going to find this out as you keep doing your podcast, but your podcast can get as technologically advanced or as good as what you want it to be. Exactly. If you're willing to put the money into it and you're willing to put the time into it, you can make it better. Mm-hmm. If you're happy with it the way it is, you just keep it like that. And it really, in the end, it's the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, did you have a hard time convincing Kyle to do it? No?
Zero hard time. There was no hard time. I was like, hey man, because initially I did think I wanted to just bring on different friends and have them talk about different stuff. But then, then it just got too difficult to be like, is this too weird for them? Like, are they going to accept this?
Yeah.
But with Kyle, it's a consistent voice, consistent mind, consistent ideas, and we have a good time with the topics, and we just keep it going.
Well, you can tell that you guys have a good relationship from the episodes that I have listened. I've listened to, I don't know, quite a few of your episodes, and you can tell that you've got a good, friendship and working relationship going on. The play that you guys do off each other is really good.
Yeah.
And consistency is, if you want to grow your podcast, that's the number one thing is consistency. You have content and consistency. And people will say, oh, content's the number one. That's not necessarily what I believe. Consistency, you have to be consistent.
Yeah.
You have to give them your listeners have to know when you're going to come on, what you're going to be talking about, and what the format of your show is. Mm-hmm. If you can be consistent with those three things, you'll get an audience.
Yeah.
And then the content that will come.
It comes as you.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Man, so we're running out of time. Man, I feel like we could sit here and talk forever.
We could probably do 2 hours. Maybe
we probably could. We probably could.
I would like to mention something before we go.
Yeah, feel free.
There is a new documentary coming out, and the Goblins of Kentucky. Greg and Dana Newkirk. I followed their stuff for a good bit of time. It looks really interesting. Something I've never heard of.
Yes.
I've heard of the. Have you heard of that incident back in? I think it's Hopkinsville, where it's like a family that said they witnessed like goblins attacking their house and.
Yeah. It's about that, right?
Yeah. Well, I think that's what I'm guessing. I don't know for sure.
What's the name of it? Is it called Hellier or?
I think it's called Hellier. That's the town in Kentucky. Hellier, yeah, which kind of strange, but
yeah,
And
it doesn't sound like it's that far from here. We may have to make a road trip. Yeah, I'm definitely familiar with what you're talking about, and I do want to. I think it's actually on YouTube right now.
Is it so?
I think.
Okay.
I think we'll check it out. All right. Well, hey man, I really am glad that you took up my offer to co-host the show. As you hang out with me, it's going to get weird, man. That's the only thing I can say. It's gonna get weird, but I think we're going to have a good time.
Yes.
And what I really hope is that not only will we have a good time with each other, but that we'll help each other grow podcasts. For sure. You know, I would like to see your podcast grow. I'd like for you to, you know, have all the success in the world with the world we live in. And you guys go on over to Podbean, check out The World We Live In with Eric and Kyle. And so what do you come out like once a week?
Once a week. It's the weekend, sometimes Mondays, just depending on when we set record. Sometimes our weekends, you know, I'm only 23, so sometimes our weekends get away from us.
You young bastard.
So I know we are.
I'm changing my opinion. I'm going to have to fire you. I'm sorry, you're too young.
I'm out and dropping. Yeah.
Well, Eric, thanks for coming and talking with us, man, and for letting everybody get to know you.
Yeah.
This was the get to know you episode. Yes. So next time he's going to be on the show is going to be on the third Friday of February. I don't even know what date that is. Yeah. But anyway, that's when he's going to be back on the show next. Everybody, I hope that you enjoyed tonight's show. Let me know what you thought about it by dropping me an email. That's sandman@parareality.com. Or you can, visit my website too, www.parareality.com. That's where you can find out all kinds of information about the show. You can listen to current and past episodes there. I've got updated content. I've changed the website somewhat. I now have a news section where you can get the latest and greatest in weird and paranormal and UFO news from all over the world. And you can find that on the news page of the website. Wow, man, there's all kind of places now that you can hear ParaReality Radio. You can hear it on Spreaker, which is probably where you're listening to it now. You can always listen to it on Facebook, on the Facebook page, the ParaReality Radio Facebook page. I'm on Google Podcasts now. If you want to do it a Google Podcast, I'm on Stitcher. There's another radio thing called Last FM or something like that. I think you can hear me on there. I'm all over the place now. So just type in ParaReality Radio on your favorite search engine, and you can find the show. That's for sure. Like I said, I'm on Facebook. You can type in ParaReality Radio to look on your Facebook search, and you can find me there. Also on Twitter, follow me at ParaReal Radio. I'm going to be tweeting out announcements like special guests, topics, and stuff like that. Next show is going to be on Friday, February 1st, 2019 at 8 o'clock p.m. Central U.S. time, so make sure you tune in, and find out. Everybody, I hope this radio program opens up your mind to new ways of thinking, expands your consciousness, and produces a change in the way you see the world. If you wish to change, you must lift the veil of ignorance that has been cast over your eyes. Only then will you see the true power of the universe. Good night, everybody, and I will see you on February the 1st.
If you wish to change, you must first lift the veil of ignorance that has been cast over your eyes. Only then will you see the true power of the universe.